Most people believe that the mountains are peaceful. Maria believed the same thing. At 29 years old, she had climbed dozens of trails before, and every trip had ended with beautiful photographs and unforgettable memories. But this hike was different. At exactly 4:17 in the afternoon, Maria stepped onto a narrow path that was not marked on any official map. Less than 1 hour later, she wished she had never seen that trail. For 5 days, nobody knew whether she was alive or dead. What happened during those 5 days became one of the most terrifying survival stories ever told. Maria had always believed that the best way to escape a stressful life was to spend a day surrounded by nature. At 29 years old, she worked long hours as a graphic designer. Every week looked exactly the same. Endless meetings, constant phone calls, and very little time to enjoy herself. When the weekend finally arrived, she made a simple decision. She would spend one quiet afternoon hiking in the mountains. The weather could not have been more perfect. A cool breeze drifted through the pine trees as sunlight painted the rocky cliffs in shades of gold. Families, photographers, and experienced hikers filled the main trail. Everything felt peaceful. Maria smiled as she adjusted the straps of her backpack and started walking. She carried enough supplies for a short hike. One bottle of water, a few energy bars, a flashlight, a small first aid kit, and her phone. She expected to return before sunset, so she did not think she needed anything more. As she climbed higher, the views became breathtaking. Massive mountains stretched across the horizon while clouds floated slowly through the valleys below. Every few minutes, she stopped to capture another photograph. It felt like one of those rare days that seemed almost perfect. About 2 hours into the hike, Maria noticed something unusual. A narrow trail disappeared into a dense forest on the side of the mountain. There was no official sign, only an old wooden post with faded letters that were almost impossible to read. Eagle Ridge. The path looked untouched. No fresh footprints. No voices. No other hikers. Maria stood there for several seconds, staring into the trees. She checked the time. There were still several hours before sunset. In her mind, it felt like a harmless adventure. She told herself she would walk for only 20 minutes, take a few photographs, and return to the main trail. That single decision changed everything. The deeper she walked, the quieter the forest became. The cheerful sounds of hikers disappeared. Even the birds stopped singing. Only the sound of wind moving through the tall pine trees remained. After nearly 30 minutes, Maria looked behind her. The trail she had been following was gone. Leaves covered the ground in every direction. Every tree looked exactly the same. She turned in a slow circle, trying to recognize something familiar. Nothing. For the first time that day, a feeling she had never experienced before crept in her mind. She was no longer exploring the mountain. She was completely lost. Maria forced herself to stay calm. Panicking would only make things worse. She remembered hearing that people who became lost often walked in circles without realizing it. Instead of running through the forest, she picked a direction and hoped it would lead back to the main trail. For nearly 20 minutes, she pushed through thick bushes and stepped over fallen trees. Nothing looked familiar. The sunlight that had filled the mountain only an hour earlier was fading behind dark clouds. The temperature dropped quickly, and a cold wind swept through the forest. Then she heard it, the sound of rushing water. A small stream could mean two things: fresh drinking water and a better chance of finding a path that other people had used. Without thinking twice, Maria followed the sound. The ground became steeper with every step. Wet leaves covered the rocky slope, making it difficult to keep her balance. She reached for a nearby branch to steady herself. The branch snapped. Everything happened in seconds. Maria lost her footing. Loose rocks rolled beneath her boots as she tumbled down the hillside. Sharp branches scratched her arms and face. Her backpack slammed against a boulder before flying off into the trees. She hit the ground with a painful crash. For several moments, she could not breathe. Every part of her body ached. Slowly, she pushed herself into a sitting position. Blood trickled from a cut above her eyebrow. Her right ankle throbbed with every movement. Standing was painful, but she could still put some weight on it. Then she noticed that her backpack had disappeared. Her water, most of her food, her flashlight. Everything was gone. The only thing she still had were the small pocket knife clipped to her belt and her phone inside her jacket. She reached for the phone. No signal. A wave of fear spread through her chest. She looked around, hoping to spot her backpack somewhere between the rocks. Instead, she saw a hollow tree lying across the forest floor. One of the shoulder straps was sticking out from the opening. Relieved, Maria hurried toward it. She knelt beside the fallen trunk and slowly reached her hand inside. Her fingers brushed against the fabric. Then, something cold moved across the back of her hand. Maria froze. She slowly turned her eyes toward the darkness inside the hollow log. Two golden eyes stared back at her. A thick snake was tightly coiled around her backpack. Its tongue slipped in and out of its mouth as it watched every movement she made. Neither of them moved. The forest became completely silent. Maria could hear nothing except her own heartbeat. One wrong movement could trigger an attack. Very slowly, she pulled her hand away. The snake lifted its head. Its body tightened. For one terrifying second, it looked ready to strike. Maria held her breath. The snake lunged forward, but stopped only inches from her face, hissing loudly before sliding deeper into the hollow trunk and disappearing into the darkness. Maria remained frozen on the ground. She had survived the fall, but she had just realized something even more frightening. The mountain was full of dangers she could not even see. Maria remained perfectly still for almost a full minute. Her hands were shaking. She had escaped the snake by only a few inches. The backpack was still inside the hollow tree, but she knew it was no longer worth the risk. Nothing inside that bag was more valuable than her life. She slowly stood up and limped away, refusing to look back. Every sound in the forest suddenly felt different. The rustling leaves, the snapping branches. Even the wind seemed to whisper through the trees. For the first time that day, Maria understood one terrifying truth. She was no longer a visitor in the mountains. She was part of the food chain. Her throat felt painfully dry. The small bottle of water in her jacket had only a few drops left. She drank the last sip, closed the empty bottle, and slipped it back into her pocket. Finding water had become her highest priority. She remembered reading that water almost always flowed downhill. With no better option, Maria followed the natural slope of the mountain. Nearly 40 minutes passed. Her injured ankle grew weaker with every step. More than once, she had to stop and lean against a tree just to catch her breath. Then, she heard it, a faint trickling sound. Her eyes widened. She pushed through a wall of bushes and found a narrow stream flowing between smooth gray rocks. Relief washed over her. She knelt beside the water and studied it for several seconds. The current was moving quickly. It looked clean. She cupped both hands and took a careful drink. The cold water gave her enough strength to keep going. As she filled her empty bottle, something on the muddy bank caught her attention. A footprint. It was enormous. At first, Maria smiled. Someone else had been there. Maybe another hiker. Maybe a park ranger. Hope returned for only a moment. She stepped closer. The shape became clearer. 5 massive toes. Long claw marks pressed deep into the wet mud. Her smile disappeared. It was not a human footprint. It belonged to a bear. Maria slowly looked around. Another footprint. Then another. A complete trail crossed the stream before disappearing into the forest. The prints looked fresh. The edges had not been washed away by the flowing water. Whatever had made them could not have been far away. A cold shiver ran down her spine. She took one careful step backward. Crack! A dry branch snapped beneath her boot. The sound echoed through the silent forest. Maria froze. Nothing moved. Then, somewhere beyond the trees, a deep growl rolled through the mountain. Not loud, not aggressive, just close enough to make her blood run cold. Her breathing became slow and shallow. She could not see the bear, but something told her the bear could already see her. Maria did not wait to hear the growl again. She slowly stepped away from the stream, careful not to make another sound. Every survival instinct told her the same thing. Do not run. Running could trigger a chase. She kept her eyes fixed on the trees while moving backward one slow step at a time. A few seconds later, the forest became silent again. No growl, no movement, only the sound of her own heartbeat. Maria turned and walked as quickly as her injured ankle allowed. She did not know whether the bear was still nearby. She did not want to find out. Nearly an hour passed. The forest slowly opened into a wide river cutting through the valley. The water moved much faster than the small stream she had found earlier. Large rocks rose above the surface, and a fallen tree stretched from one side to the other like a narrow bridge. Maria looked around. There was no trail, no bridge, no sign of another person. Crossing the river seemed to be her only chance to keep moving. She tested the fallen tree with one foot. It felt solid. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the log. The river rushed beneath her feet. Halfway across, she stopped. Something felt wrong. The water around the log had become strangely calm. There were no ripples, no fish, no birds, only silence. Then, a pair of dark eyes slowly appeared above the surface. Maria stared in disbelief. At first, she thought it was a floating branch. The object drifted closer. Then another shape appeared behind it. A long, rough back, powerful jaws, a massive crocodile. Her entire body froze. The crocodile remained perfectly still, watching her from only a few feet away. For several terrifying seconds, neither of them moved. Then the water exploded. The crocodile launched itself upward with unbelievable speed. Its jaws slammed shut exactly where Maria's leg had been a split second earlier. She screamed and threw herself forward. The log shook violently beneath her. She lost her balance. One foot slipped into the icy water. The crocodile turned instantly. Its powerful tail sent waves crashing against the rocks as it rushed toward her again. Maria pulled herself onto the opposite bank just as the enormous jaws snapped against the edge of the river. She rolled several feet across the ground, breathing so hard that her chest burned. When she finally looked back, the crocodile was still there. Only its eyes remained above the water, watching, waiting, as though it knew she would have to cross the river again someday. Maria slowly stood up. She had escaped the snake. She had avoided the bear. Now the river itself had tried to kill her. But the mountain was not finished with her yet. Maria stood motionless on the riverbank, trying to slow her breathing. Her entire body trembled. The crocodile remained in the water, almost invisible beneath the surface. Only its eyes watched her. She slowly turned away and continued deeper into the mountains. The sun was already sinking behind the peaks. Long shadows stretched across the forest, and the temperature dropped with every passing minute. Her ankle had swollen badly. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. She knew one thing. If darkness arrived before she found shelter, surviving the night would become almost impossible. For nearly 40 minutes, Maria searched the mountainside. She looked beneath large rocks, inside fallen trees, and under thick bushes. Nothing offered enough protection. Then, she noticed something strange. High on the side of the mountain, partially hidden by vines and moss, was a narrow opening in the rock. A cave. Her heart filled with hope. It was dry. It was hidden. Most importantly, it could protect her from the freezing night. Maria climbed toward the entrance as quickly as her injured leg allowed. Cold air drifted out of the cave. The opening was just large enough for one person to enter. She picked up a long tree branch and slowly stepped inside. The darkness swallowed her almost immediately. Only a faint beam from her phone's nearly empty battery revealed the rocky walls. The cave stretched much farther than she expected. Drop. Water echoed somewhere deep inside. Maria called out, "Hello." Her voice bounced off the walls and disappeared into the darkness. No answer. She took another cautious step. Then another. The air suddenly changed. A strange smell filled the cave. It was strong, heavy, almost like wet fur mixed with something rotten. Maria stopped walking. She pointed the light toward the ground. There were scratches across the stone floor. Long, deep, fresh. Her heart began pounding. Those marks had not been made by falling rocks. Something with enormous claws had carved them into the stone. Then, she noticed a pile of bones against the wall. Some belonged to deer. Others were too broken to recognize. The silence became unbearable. Maria slowly raised the light toward the far end of the cave. For one brief second, two enormous glowing eyes reflected back at her from the darkness. They did not blink. They did not move. They were staring directly at her. Then, a deep growl echoed through the cave. Not outside, not near the entrance. Inside, only a few feet away. Maria could not move. The beam of light shook violently in her hand. The growl became louder. A massive shadow slowly stood up from the darkness. And then, her phone battery died. Everything went completely black. To be continued. What was waiting inside that cave? Was it the same bear whose footprints Maria had discovered? Or something even more terrifying? Comment part 2 if you want the next chapter, and do not forget to like and subscribe because Maria's nightmare is only beginning.